Hello, and welcome to another edition of Titans Review Corner. This is not what I'm doing. I just wanted a nice background for a book that recently came into my possession. I have to thank my friend Gina for that. Now, the title alone made me go, I'm interested in this. No idea what it's going to be about. I could take some guesses. But in the end, I really didn't know what I was in store for. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. This done by the same man that did Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I haven't read that one yet. I own it now. It's on my to-do list. I don't even know if I will have the words to convey how much I enjoyed this book. For those of you out there that like history, the Civil War era, that time period in general, not necessarily having to do with the war specifically, but the 1800s, and vampires. All of you, just go. Go read. I'll wait. Yeah. So, this goes through Abraham Lincoln's life. They did a stunning amount of research, and in what one would consider plot holes in life, filled in the blanks with vampires. A Marriage Made in Heaven, well, for me, who likes reading about vampires, whether they are on the side of good or the side of evil, you know, give or take, I've seen both sides, doesn't really matter to me. Just interesting to see one's take on the vampires, and this is semi-traditional. Like, it follows some of the rules, and then of course some of the rules are myths, which I'm totally fine with. I actually really enjoyed the fact that these vampires could blend a little bit more with people, you know, to a degree, and that alone I thought made them more devious, cunning, and what is the word I'm looking for? Not sinister, but something in that direction. More threatening. And due to the time period, they can also get away with more, which I thought was very interesting. But they are not the focus of the story. Obviously, this focus of the story is Abraham Lincoln's life. I've actually been a fan of Abraham Lincoln for about as far back as I can remember. The way that this writer goes about telling his story and pieces it together between internal monologue thoughts, what he's actually doing, and what he writes down, which is separated by difference in font. It's seamless. You would think that they would be broken up, but the story is like stepping into a warm bath. It's really like the best analogy I had for this. I'm one of those people that has a hard time reading, especially if I can't get into the way that the writer speaks. And this, I felt like I was there. I felt like this could have easily been something that I wrote to myself. It doesn't use a lot of big words. Once in a while I use a big word, and either it will explain itself either in context, or there are actually some notes, usually on places and like types of objects, things like that, in case, you know, you're not up on your 1800s history. And that also I found was interesting. I love having little footnotes to help explain something that I would normally have to go, you know, wiki or something. But yeah, the warm bath thing, it's like so comfortable. Now, I don't do exactly a lot of reading, but I've spent a fair amount reading over the years, And that very few authors I've had this sort of connection with the writing. You know, a book is supposed to transport you, right? To whatever time, place, or world that this story is trying to convey. I was there from, like, the first page. Well, maybe not the first page, but I'd say probably within the first 15 pages. And that's pretty good. Most of the time a book, especially by, say, R.L. Stine, which I know is probably a weird reference at this point, it usually takes me near half of the book before I'm interested, before they've hooked me and I'm like, I have to keep reading until it's done. Not so with this book. Not every free waking moment, but a good portion of my free waking moments, because I read slow. I was in this book. I was enjoying every moment, even when it was dull. Now, to give an overlay, there's his life is the general story, and then you have the little bits with the vampires in it. There's what would be considered normal everyday life, but that's not for us because most people don't live that way anymore. So that actually I still found interesting, because you really got an idea of the time period that way. Then we have, you know, fighting either verbally or physically, or traveling, or meeting new people, and, you know, a lot of them you'll recognize, especially if you know, like that stuff. And even the parts that one would consider mundane or dull or uninteresting, I don't know, the way that they presented it, it was still interesting to read. I almost wish this was a history book. I'd be like, go learn history, and I think it at least is half that, due to the amount of research put into the book. And the way that you see the insight to what Abraham Lincoln was like, I'd love it to be true, because he was such a fascinating person, and this would just add another dimension to that. Because, I mean, how often do you really get into the head of somebody else? You could pretend to, and I would imagine that he did, because I don't actually know how much, you know, how much actually is written in fact, without, you know, going not line by line, but certainly chapter by chapter, because there's so much going on. And I was constantly going, okay, how old was he? How old was he? Because they give year dates, and so I just have to remember what year he was born, and then what year we're in now. It jumps around a little bit in that aspect, but it's still relevant to what is being said. So it really doesn't mess the story up, I would say. It just makes you go, oh, okay, wait, how old was he here? How old was he? But that's just a personal, like, OCD thing for me. So I like having a timeline in my head. That's why I can't read any other books at the same time. It might screw me up. And the ending. I'm definitely not going anywhere near even trying to tell you about the ending, because I really want you to read this. But it was very, to me it was satisfying. To some of you, you might go, meh, but for what the book was, I felt that it was a fitting ending. So I really hope that you go and check this book out, because I think it's worth the time. If nothing else, it's just a really good read. And I know at least some of the big points have to be true, so you're learning a little bit. Look, it's educational, but fun! Yeah, okay. I will try and stop selling the book, but it's worth a sell. So, I mean, even if you go to the library and go rent it, you know? Worth the time. worth the time. It takes me a long time to read a book. I had this done in about 10 days. So, Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, A+. Have a good night.